So this is the next chapter. Put in a new floor. We're just glassing it in right now. And I got like a couple pieces of glass to put down and putting down the fabric. And then glass it up against the side to seal it up. And we got to do the front. This gets seats and goes. Well, I bet you thought I forgot all about boats. Because it sure has been a while since I've done it much with boats. And this is a motor that needs a job. But it needs some fuel lines as well. And here's one. That's what we're doing with this one right now. Is I had purchased online some fresh made fuel lines. You know, on these here you've got the 3 carburetors, so I have to go from carb to carb and then from fuel pump to the top carb. I've already replaced these other ones. You got the 2 fuel pumps. But this boat right here, we finally got it together. It's kind of a story, but I have some pictures. But we ended up tearing out the whole floor, completely tearing out the floor, tearing out the stringers, putting in new stringers. And I actually doubled up on the stringers. There's actually twice as much structure in there now than there was before. Then put plywood down and glassed it in, and we had the foam, the expandable foam underneath the floor. So it's filled with the closed cell marine style foam. Built ourselves a little bitch and rewired it all with those switches up there. They're kind of cool. You'll see them later. And painted the hull and glassed in any of the imperfections. But this is one of those boats where I had picked it up with a friend who's now no longer with us. It's one of the reasons why this project came to a stop. It's an old Chrysler Conqueror from the 70s. And it's actually a pretty good little boat. And I don't know if I can get a picture of it. I've got some pictures I'll fit in there. Got a spare for the trailer, painted the trailer. But not a lot of money in it yet. Sure, a lot of elbow grease in this little boat. I guess money comes along with it. The hardware, a couple $100 here and there. Got to wash it. The paint was pretty expensive, I guess. We did put money in it. But if I can find the pictures of where we tore out the floor and put in the stringers, I'm going to do that. But hoping this is the resurgence of the boat, but also getting back into some of the boats for the summertime. I got quite a bit to do for the channel. But for today, I'm peeling out these old fuel lines and putting in these ones. That's what the job is. Let me see if I can find the man's company and address. Yes. This guy right here does excellent work. So if you ever need fuel lines, I'm not sure what else he does, but fuel lines for sure for these old 6 cylinders. Now I've got a bunch of these to put together. I've got this one was my first. This was the 125 horse. But got this one right here, which is a 115 with a much later ignition system. That's going to go on a boat this summer, I hope. Now this motor here, we had done the lower unit, put in a new water pump and all that, and I showed how to put the lower unit back up there with the gear shift so that things worked. Now I'm going to have to cut that prop off because it's frozen to the shaft. But this boat's going to need about a 21 at a minimum, 23 possibly pitch, somewhere in that range, in the low 20s, you know, to take advantage of the power. Checkmate sits right there. After we get the Conqueror going, I'm probably going to take this one out to play because it pretty much is ready to go. It's been a while since I've run the Checkmate. But another inline 6. And another one right here. This is a 95. We got another 65 here on the floor. And the wrap on this one was it ran good. And then somebody messed up the lower unit by letting water stay in it and froze and popped it. So this lower unit's going to come off. The one from the other one's going on. And new water pump. And this is, again, another runner. And it may end up being on that Conqueror. The original motor for the Conqueror was the 105 4-cylinder Chrysler. That's what originally came with that boat. And this one here has good compression. Its problem is that the ignition failed, so I have to come up with a ignition, which is another option. Maybe this one goes back on the Chrysler. Either way, the game for me is to make sure that the boats of that era get motors of that era. Outboards, boats, and trains. We've done a lot of trains. Now we're going back and doing some boats to mix in there. So anyway, let me finish this off. I'm not sure what I can show video-wise that's of interest. You know, basically, these fittings are already there. The gaskets underneath these are tough. You don't want to mess them up unless you have new gaskets to replace. And also, you got to make sure these are rotated back to give clearance to the starter motor. So I will continue, and then I'll just show a picture when I got it all done. And the other thing is, parts like this old coil, man, do not mess with that. They are brittle, you know, when they work, especially like the wires. Now, I went through and replaced a lot of the wiring harness on this. You probably noticed that. And in particular, I replaced the wires that went into the ignition system because they were just basically crumbling. All these have been replaced. I did not replace those, but I did put shrink wrap on them. So, and that's really the biggest issue on these old Mercuries for me. Usually the top ends are salvageable. Yeah, every once in a while you get one that someone didn't change the water pump on, and that's a problem. But the problems I've run into with these is like this one right here with the fuel lines, and then the wiring harness where the insulation has gotten brittle and cracked. But that's well within the range of a hobbyist, just getting the parts. Now these wiring harnesses are available, and these fuel lines are available, as I just showed you. So, and man, these things run good, you know, smooth, easy power. Not the best on fuel, but they have a lot of history. They got those old goofy partition type pistons for controlling the scavenging in the cylinder. They're not a looper or a flat top piston with transfers like we're all used to seeing. But they worked. They worked pretty good. You'll run 4,000 RPMs, 5,000 RPMs all day long, day in, day out with its needle bearings, as long as it has lubrication. I got some funny stories on these old motors. When I was a kid, I used to work on these. Younger man as well. And they're tough. So I'm really looking forward to getting this one back in the water. That's my goal for the next few days. Well, this is not a how-to video. I don't do that. It's more about what I did, and I have to change one of my original opinions about taking off the filter caps here. I pulled this one off, and it was packed with mud. So I'm going to go clean them out, start with that. And but this top cover comes off, and one of the oddities is the choke is really just a solenoid, but that comes right out of the solenoid. What happens is you excite that magnet, it pulls up on that and turns the choke on. And I pull the starter motor off, and there's a bolt here and a bolt here, which is why the top cover has to come off. This bracket here holds the bottom, and it has these case screws that you got, or case bolts you have to remove to get that out. And I found it easier to remove the solenoid, so I had space to get in there. And so I'm gonna go about popping all 3 of those caps and see if blow it out with air and see whether or not that that doesn't help a little bit. I'm a little surprised about how much mud was in that thing. Shouldn't be, but I am. So anyway, back to work. It's actually not nearly as bad as the middle one. For whatever reason, that was the one that was packed. That one down there, yeah, a little bit in there, but nothing to write home about. So I'm going to blow them all out. And that filter was basically pretty clean. So that's good news. If I saw any more, I'd probably go and pull the float bowls and take a look inside those carburetors. But I think at this point, I'm going to take the top one off and take a look in that. And then we'll start going back the other direction. Now these little screws that hold those filter caps have got that little washer that helps seal. When you put these back together, you don't go too tight. Number one, it'll strip right out. But you want the gaskets to crush firm. You know, it takes a little bit of a finesse to work on these old things, these old Mercs. I used to do a lot more when I was a kid. I don't know how I survived. See how dirty this one is. Not bad. Not bad at all, actually. Just that middle one was full of mud. But anyway, let me blow them out and put them back together. All right, this boat goes for a test ride, and not going to put a lot of time into it, just to see if we have a boat. But for the most part, the interior has been done, paint's on it. We got some things to do. The motor runs and pumps. I think I got a little video showing that. And I got a 19 pitch on it. Won't go too fast. Got the plug in, and got a lot of detail work to do. All the lights work, including the nav lights. And yeah, a few little things we got to clean off the floor. But finally got into it and decided to finish off this project, which we had started back in 2019, a long time ago. So wish us luck. Yeah, it's like we have a few projects around here. How about this old girl right here? 55 horse, 3-cylinder. It has almost no hours on it. It was a barn find. But it does have the electric shift, which is probably what stopped it. And I've been picking up these controllers because they're hard to find. And I really want to put one of these electric shift ones together and do a video of pulling out the solenoid, cleaning it up, putting it back in, or getting new ones because they are available later. Now, this falls into the category you can't make this stuff up. So we took this for a test run, you know, just a shakedown run. You know, test bits and pieces. Yeah, we got tools. Make sure everything works. And got to make sure you have all your safety stuff, you know. Here, especially here in New York State, they check fire extinguisher and life vests, and you have to have one flotation device that you hang on to, you know. We got to vacuum the floor because we did some more work. Anchor, just the basics. Get out there, and we're buzzing around, and first it wouldn't idle, and after a while it started idling. You know, it wasn't running that good, but running good enough. So I do a couple laps, low throttle, and fairly pleased with the way it's running, actually, which, as you'll find out in a minute, it's kind of a surprise. And now I was expecting to get, like, you know, high 20s, low 30s with it. So with that throttle perpendicular to the end, so basically 90-degree throw, popped up on plane, and I was going like 24 mile an hour, but that's all it was doing. I'm like, I kind of expected a little bit more spunk out of that 100-some-odd horse motor. Didn't quite feel as strong as the 70 I have in the back of the boat upstate. Like, what the heck? But I figured let's just go around more circles. So we burned about a half tank of gas. It was running nice and smooth. It's nice and quiet. No knocks, clatters, signs of heat or nothing like that. It was pumping. got that little pee hole somewhere right there. Doesn't come out, you know, big gusher, but it does come out, you know. So we're going and going. I finally decide maybe we better just bring it in. It was a nice ride. It was actually a pleasant speed. 24 mile an hour. Boat planed right out. It was a nice smooth ride. Actually, it's fast enough. I mean, that would be a nice ride. But still, I was like, what the heck? Then I brought it back here. I'm thinking, I wonder if the linkage is not right or something. You know, maybe it's not. It almost felt like it wasn't getting timing. It just felt like it needed more. Quite a bit more, actually. So we started working the throttle, and I realized that down here you can see where the throttle is. Open up the throttle plates in the carburetor. They weren't even moving. So that whole time that we were running that motor, we never did even open up the throttles. All we were doing was going back and forth and advancing the timing. So I was wrong about the timing advance, but I wasn't wrong about something not feeling right about the linkage. So at full throttle, the way we had that control mounted, all I was getting was timing advance, and that was enough to propel this boat to 24 mile an hour and get it on plane, which is good. Never did even touch opening up the throttle past the high idle. So I happen to have another control. I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if we're actually getting the travel out of that control, or maybe it's not the right control. And I realized that with the other control, that handle there not only goes perpendicular to where we had it, it was stopped by the way we had it mounted, it goes another 45 degrees further down. So once we mounted that control, and I'll go look at it closer to where we can actually get full travel, now it actually opens up the throttle. Now I'm damn curious. Don't want to make too many more changes. Trials and tribulations. You see how we got it mounted now is you can get that all the way down. Whereas before we were only getting to there. So we literally lost most of that higher end of the throttle. We actually lost about 30 to 40 degrees of travel, which is just enough to advance the timing, which got us on plane, so we had a boat ride, but not enough to open the throttles to find out what that motor will do. So that'll be the next video. We're going to do some service things. See, I was actually going to move that boat along. You know, this is a running 2-cylinder 50 with the electric shift. I was going to put that motor on this little boat and probably move it along, let somebody else have fun with it. But after the way it ran and the way it felt, this little boat might have a new life. One more little detail on this boat project here is because of how this ran, it's going to get the new ignition system. I'm definitely going to do that. But also because of the way this boat handled, don't laugh at me. Man, you think I got a few motor projects? I'm wondering whether or not it's worth bringing it back to its original version of power and putting this Chrysler 105 4-cylinder back on that boat. What I need to do with that is do the automotive ignition modification that you see online. It's fairly common, fairly easy to do. But other than that, I think that motor is in pretty good shape. I also have for that motor a power trim and tilt midsection there that came off a Force down in there somewhere. But maybe build around that power trim and tilt this motor and then put that motor on this boat. What do you think? Give me a little feedback on that.